Hi everyone, Chad Parks here. Today we're going to be going over the clutch assembly. Let's get to it. Alright everyone, here we are to go over the clutch assembly installed on OS Max 12TG version 4. First we're going to start with the collet that is not supplied in the kit. You're going to want to use a TLR 241052, and that part number is supplied on my website under parts required to complete this kit. Oddly enough, this is not that part number. The TLR collet is a little bit shorter, so you may or may not visually see the difference here. But if you do pick up on that, that's the reason this was longer. I don't have a TLR collet on hand. So again, that part number is TLR 241052 that you want to use on that collet. So we're just going to slide our flywheel over here, install the supplied clutch nut. And I'm going to grab the channel locks. I don't use the plastic protective channel locks simply because I haven't gone to the store and bought any. So you can use just any kind of channel locks. I definitely recommend channel locks over like a piston locking tool. Is it's pretty unacceptable practice as it leaves a dent in your con rod bushing. So you definitely want to use pliers or some kind of a clutch tool to grab that flywheel to tighten that nut. That nut uses a 3/8 inch socket to tighten. So just snug that down, and then we're going to move on to our clutch shoes. The clutch shoes fit just fine out of the bag. There's a couple tricks we can do that we can go over as far as trimming, and this will make the clutch a little bit more tunable to your liking. So generally what I run is when you're installing those shoes, I'll cut the tip off of it. So just about 2 millimeter or so. And that just lets the clutch lay in a little bit closer. And what that does is allows a later engagement in the RPM range. So it gives you a little bit more of a poppy feel, or a little more torquey feel on the low end. And the other thing you can do is shave out this inside using your Dremel, and that'll accomplish more of that, and that'll let that clutch lay in there farther, which lets the engine rev up a little bit more before clutch engagement. So a few tuning options there on the clutch. But today we're just going to assemble it as is using the supplied 1.0 springs. So the thing on the springs that are included in your kit is they actually turned out a little bit longer than I had intended. And in the interest of time, I knew you guys and you people could handle this little modification. So what we're going to do is trim off about 2 millimeter of the end of the spring. And it's pretty soft material, so it's not that big of a deal to cut through with just standard needle nose pliers. And this isn't a scientific measurement. This is roughly 2 millimeter. You could mark it if you wanted with some calipers if you wanted to get too crazy. But from here moving forward, these will be adjusted to a shorter length, so you won't have to do this. But for now, this is what we're working with. So here we're going to install the 1.0 spring. Generally I use a flat blade screwdriver, and some of you may have some clutch tools laying around, but you're just going to slip that over there. And that's that. We won't go through all three, but that's how you want that to lay in there. And also to reference that you've cut enough of the spring is you want that to make sure that that spring doesn't protrude past the edge of the clutch shoe. And the other end of it, you want to make sure that it's not conflicting with this shoe right here. So if you put that spring on uncut as it's supplied, it'll rub a little bit and kind of hinder you getting the next clutch shoe on, so you'll know if that's too long. So there's one clutch shoe installed. Next you're going to, and obviously you'd want to do the remaining two, but in the interest of time, we'll move on. You're going to install your supplied flange bearing first. I recommend running one clutch shim before you install your bearing. Then we're going to install one flange bearing, and then we're going to install your standard bearing. So this clutch, it's not that out of the ordinary. There's a couple other manufacturers that do it, but I've chosen to go the route of 3 bearings just for more support. And so anyway, you're going to install those first 2 bearings, slide your clutch bell over, and your final bearing goes on like that. So, and you also, just to double check, make sure that you have this gap right here, that's not rubbing the flywheel, that it is shimmed out properly, and that's not rubbing. So next, speaking of a shim kit, you're going to shim the rest of this for the proper backlash, and you want just about 1/2 millimeter or less, almost like 2/10 of a millimeter of play in that. So I've not included a shim set either. So this is something you're going to have to purchase separately. I recommend the Team Associated 89148. So I've given you 2 part numbers in this video. One is the TLR collet that goes on very first, 241052, and then you're going to use the Associated clutch shim kit, or any manufacturer's clutch shim kit will work. But the one I'm using here is the Associated 89148, and it also comes with this bolt and washer and the shims. I don't actually need shims on this because I am, like mentioned earlier, using the wrong collet. So you will need to use those when using the proper collet. And just like when we put the flywheel on, we're going to tighten that screw. Grab again with our pliers. Hopefully you don't mind going to the store and getting some plastic protected channel locks, but for now this is what we use. You're just going to snug that down, and that's your clutch setup. Thanks for watching, guys.